Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 6, Wrestling at Random, where I'm saying, if you've been listening since the start of the season, that the theme is somehow more wrestling than ever, and ever includes Season 5, where we were saying we had more wrestling than ever at that point in the randomizer. Season 6 has dwarfed that. I believe it's nearly twice as much wrestling has been dumped into the randomizer, upwards of 60,000 hours of professional wrestling spanning decades, continents, space, and time, legal and extra legal means of acquiring these wrestling light and dark webs are all represented in the randomizer. He said it's very likely the randomizer would pull both very mainstream things and things that for the modern wrestling audience would be off the beaten path. We have something on this week's show that was pulled from one of the very deep archives that is involved in the randomizer, and it's something that I don't know if it's actually been represented here on the free feed, Jeremy. I know it's been represented on the bonus feed several times. It is what is popularly known as World of Sport Wrestling, Del Martin Promotions, in the UK, March 1981. We've talked about this a lot on the bonus feed, but we're bringing it to the free feed here.
This is our first time in the free feed talking World of Sport, talking British wrestling, coming to you here with the bonus feed is where we dove deep over many episodes. Our patrons have dug out great episodes of World of Sport, great matches.
A curated list or two, I believe.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of our favorites. Guys we didn't know were our favorites until we started doing this podcast. Guys like Adrian Street showing up in World of Sport.
I was a big Adrian Street fan as a kid, but I had no idea what I was missing in World of Sport era Adrian Street. Jim Breaks is another one that maybe out of everyone that we had seen in those episodes of World of Sport, those World of Sport matches on the bonus feed, a guy that I had only heard the name and had never seen him actually wrestle before, totally blew me away. There's Johnny Saint as well, who modern wrestling fans may be more familiar with through some Chikara appearances, NXT UK, commissioner, whatever the hell they call it over there. But yeah, it was certainly for both of us a blind spot in terms of having actually watched any of it prior to doing this podcast and it being brought to us on the bonus feed.
Yeah, and thank goodness it was brought to our attention because it's a lot of fun. It's a different presentation. We'll get into it as we review this show. It's a different presentation. It's round based, so you'll have a round, then a break in the action, and then more of a boxing structure.
Think Johnny B. Bad versus Scotty Flamingo Clash of the Champions in WCW.
You don't necessarily have to think that.
Only for the round structure. I would say there's absolutely nothing about the actual in-ring action that could be compared to that Clash of the Champions match from the early 90s in WCW, which we have reviewed here.
Well, we did
on this very podcast.
So a little bit for those who aren't familiar with World of Sport. Like we mentioned, this is a British wrestling television show that aired Saturday afternoons on ITV in the UK. It aired from 1955 until it was canceled all the way in 1988. So it had quite a run here. We're looking at March of 1981. There's 2 episodes in the video that we're watching now. If you've never seen it, you want to watch World of Sport, there's plenty of matches and stuff to look up on YouTube. Here in this video that we procured, it was 2 episodes kind of mashed together. So we're just going to rip through both of them.
Parts of 2 episodes. The first episode is joined in progress. We should mention, in terms of like the structure of this and what World of Sport actually is, I would say the best, and maybe one of our British listeners, one of our listeners in the UK will correct us, but the best parallel you could draw to American sports television would be the Wide World of Sports program on ABC, which, if you know what that is, congratulations. You're as old as Jeremy and I are. I would say more sorry than congratulations, but a show that had a bunch of different sports that would be shown on it, including, in the case of World of Sport, professional wrestling. Dale Martin Promotions was the promotion featured on the show. And it is interesting, throughout these episodes of World of Sport, we will get it'll get thrown back to the studio where we will get soccer score updates. We'll also get graphic updates in 1981 on the screen, overlays during the wrestling action, telling us how Nottingham Forest is doing in their match.
I was paying close attention to Aston Villa's scores because they're my soccer team that I support.
It definitely drew parallels to when we watched the WWF primetime wrestling, where there would be matches from Boston Garden, and you'd be straining your eyes to see the little dot matrix ribbon board. There'd be a ringside camera shot. You'd see like Hartford Whalers 3, Winnipeg Jets 1, stuff like that. This was the football, dare I say, equivalent of that.
We will get to the good news about this, and why we didn't kind of break out just one episode of this is because there's a lot of stars that came through this territory. There's a lot of stars who participated in World of Sport, and we get to see a lot of them on this randomly chosen episode for us to watch. We got to see we got to see a lot of them. We're one of the I think most popular, dare I say important figures is Big Daddy. We'll see him later on this.
Is Big Daddy a Hall of Famer? The longest running question in professional wrestling discourse, still going to this day.
So we will see him later. The couple of guys we mentioned we won't see. We won't see Jim Breaks, unfortunately.
So sad. No Jim Breaks. No Johnny Saint, which means no Jim Breaks versus Johnny Saint. If you want to hear a discussion of those two guys and their awesome rivalry again, and the Patreon bonus feed, I believe you mentioned right before we started recording, Jeremy, is it episodes 54 and 71?
57, 57 and 71. We dive into World of Sports specifically, and then we have more World of Sports showing up as you get more into the recent episodes. There's over 200 episodes in the bonus feed. Can you believe that? Go into patreon.com/wrestling at random. For $5, you unlock the entire back catalog, 200 more episodes that you haven't heard here on the free feed.
Just imagine you've fallen in love with Wrestling at Random. You're in season 6. We are whatever, like 165, 170, 175 episodes deep here in the free feed. Imagine an entire alternate history of Wrestling at Random, more episodes than there are even in the free feed, none of which you've ever heard. These are all completely exclusive, brand new to you, evergreen episodes in the bonus feed. If you've never heard them, if that's not a reason to check it out, I don't know what is.
Let's get into this show. We hear the awesome play-by-play announcer broadcasting these World of Sport events. A comp to the U.S. announcers would be like a Jim Nance type of hushed tones, then excitement as he broadcasts. Love this style. It really makes it feel like a sporting contest.
Yes, this Kent Walton commentary is, I believe we mentioned in the bonus feed when we first heard it, it's the most, and I say this as someone who is not a fan of this sport and very rarely, if ever, watches it, but it's like golf-style announcing on pro wrestling. Talk a lot on Wrestling at Random, how much we love alternate names for moves on commentary from play-by-play men, and this is partially just because it's a different style of wrestling, so moves just have different names. There are so many examples of this throughout. Ken Walton, a fixture on World of Sport, and really considering how different and alien this style can feel when you're first diving into it, having a really good commentator is crucial to not feeling lost and be able to enjoy the program, and Kent Walton is certainly that.
Yeah, I'd say, we'll get into it as we describe this first match, but I'd say the style is very grappling based. Not a lot of striking. Not a lot of uh, the flashy moves are kept to a minimum. But when they hit, they mean something. It'll build to it, and it's got a very sport presentation until it doesn't. And when it
Yes,
doesn't, it gets real pro wrestling, and we will get into
it
that.
gets
We'll have some good
really wacky.
examples. Yeah, good examples later in the show.
It's funny because where it is, the presentation, a lot of it could not be more different than Lucha. And yet there are so many things that remind me of how Lucha feels, in that it's serious but completely absurd at the same time. The pacing, if you are not a regular viewer of this style, or if you're not a regular viewer of Lucha in that case, it is very difficult to get yourself out of your North American or Japanese pro wrestling mind and like let this wash over you without it just feeling a little bit weird and disjointed. But when it goes well, it's great. I would make the argument that much like Lucha, when it's bad, it's worse than the bad stuff from other things that you know. Because that's always been my deal with Lucha. Great Lucha is great. Bad Lucha, truly bad Lucha, is the worst professional wrestling in the world. And these extremes, I feel, exist in this style as well.
Let's get into a match as an example here. Nick McManus.
Mick McManus.
Mick McManus.
Mick McManus, which is a very early 80s British sounding name.
Taking on Sammy Lee, who we've seen in the bonus feed. We are very familiar with this Sammy Lee. Adam, a lot of our listeners listen to your other podcast, The Big Audio Nightmare, covering Japanese pro wrestling. They would probably know Sammy Lee as well.
Yeah, Sammy Lee, Satoru Sayama, who would go on to be the original Tiger Mask, one of the most influential wrestlers in modern professional wrestling history, his influence still being felt to this day. This is Sammy Lee, Satoru Sayama in basic black trunks, again, pre-Tiger Mask, pre all the flash and pageantry, but he looks like $1 million. He is a babyface here, which we've talked about on the bonus feed. It's so wild to see here in 1981, a Japanese professional wrestler outside of Japan being presented as just a babyface that the crowd absolutely loves, because they're so used to how these stereotypes and tropes of Japanese wrestling, Japanese wrestlers, I should say, were presented for the most part in the United States. Completely different presentation here. And man, two completely different wrestlers. Mickey McManus is not particularly young, not particularly great shape, and Sammy Lee is a specimen.
And Sammy Lee quickly, like showing off the speed, tries a takedown. McManus blocks it. We're into round one, and McManus sends him into the turnbuckles. And it's called a posting in World of Sport, which we love.
Yeah, an Irish whip in the corner, a hammer throw is called a posting, which I always thought was weird, because when I hear it, I think that means you're getting thrown into the post on the floor. I would tell them to call it a buckling. However, I will defer to them since this is their promotion, their style.
Yeah, he counters by running up the corner, doing a flip off the top rope, and then he lands and hits a jumping spin kick.
Yes, classic Sayama. Kent Walton calls this a mule kick as Mick McManus battles to the floor. Got a Cobra clutch in the ring. Sammy Lee up quickly, hits a liver kick. We get Mongolian chops here from Sammy Lee. Crossface as the bell rings to end the first round. Kent Walton tells us that Sammy Lee just came into World Sport Del Martin Promotions in the last year and only turned pro in 1978. So he is only 3 years at most into his career here, and is already looking almost like a fully formed Tiger Mask. When you think about it, we've seen the Tiger Mask Dynamite Kid matches
Yeah.
one of which from 1982. So we are very close to the return of Sayama Sammy Lee going back to New Japan as Tiger Mask and setting the world on fire.
Yeah, the closing moments of this round, McManus trying to survive that final minute, and Lee's strikes for me were they were so quick, so intense, and it's a real differentiator from the rest of the folks we'll see on this show.
Well, you mentioned quick and strikes. I mean, one of his other names while he was on excursion, if you want to call it that, was he Quick Kick Lee, or was that was Maeda? Maeda was Quick Kick Lee. That's right. Who we've seen also in on a World Sports show previously. Quick Kick Lee, Akira Maeda, and Sammy Lee, Satoru Sayama. I believe they tried to say they were related in some way,
Bruce
shape,
Lee.
or form. Yes, yeah. all being traced back to the Bruce Lee lineage. Which, does that mean they're involved with the training of Ultimo Dragon, the last student of Bruce Lee?
It all ties together as we head to round 2. Lee with a wrist lock. He uses his foot to try to choke McManus while he's got him in a wrist lock. McManus gets what's called a public warning, and this pisses off Lee.
It pisses off Lee. Lee is up a swarm of quick kicks up against the ropes, and now Sammy Lee gets a public warning. Once you get 2 public warnings, you are disqualified. So you basically get 1 free infraction, and then the second one, you're done.
And I love when the public warning gets announced to the crowd. The ring announcer in disgust, "That's a public warning."
And it's a great way to get heat, whether it be the heel getting a public warning, or even more heat, really, when the referee gives unjust. The baby face a public warning. And the fans are upset. They don't like that whatsoever. Sammy Lee goes for a dropkick after getting his public warning and accidentally hits the ref. The bell rings. Apparently, we think Mick McManus has won via disqualification, but now we don't know why the bell has rang, and we just restart. I guess ringside, they thought this was going to result in a second public warning. It didn't. So then on the restart, Sammy Lee just throws a swarm of kicks. Mick McManus battles, goes to the dressing room, and that's it. Sammy Lee wins by countout. He is beloved by the crowd.
Yes.
This was so strange.
Of course he was beloved by the crowd. He won by ass kicking. He was just he kicked the crap out of McManus so bad. Like, he literally picked up right where he left off after that weird stoppage and just kept kicking the crap out of him till McManus just had enough and walked out. He gets counted out. Sammy Lee is your winner. Fun way to start the show.
Fun way to start the show, and a really unique. We've seen where heel champions dramatically leave because they don't want to lose their time. But this was just a guy that got beat up and said he had enough and just unceremoniously went to the back, and that was it. We should mention, unlike some of the other matches we'll see on this show, this was 1 fall, even though it was with a round system. We come back from break. And what do we have here? Oh, wait, I was wrong. We do have Johnny Saint on this show. What was I talking about? We have Johnny Saint against the British lightweight champion, Steve Gray. A little inside baseball here. Jeremy and I both watched this show over a rather long period of time as compared to usually. We each obviously watch separately, but we usually get through it in 1 sitting, 2 sittings at most. We both had things going on, whether it be work travel or federal jury duty, that got in the way of watching this all in 1 sitting. So that would explain why I totally forgot that Johnny Saint was on this show.
Yeah, this match, a different system here. This is no rounds, a rare no round match here. No rounds, a 20-minute duration, 1 fall match. If there is no finish, the referee will decide the winner.
That was one of the strangest things when we first started watching World of Sport on the bonus feed, when they would occasionally have matches with that rule where the referee also acts as the judge. This also just popped into my mind that could we draw a parallel between this and the AWF with their round system, and I believe they also had the same deal where the referee was the judge if it went to a draw.
Good God, that is in the free feed.
Oof, what a show that was.
So here you mentioned him. He's the world lightweight champion, Johnny Saint, taking on the British lightweight champion, Steve Gray.
So we find out which is better, Earth or Great Britain.
Lots of grappling early, obviously. Saint doing a lot of flipping out of Irish whips into the ropes. A lot of creative holds and escapes. Johnny Saint, he's cartwheeling out of the way. He's grabbing arms. Gray tries to snap mirror his way free a couple times, but he can't break the grip of Johnny Saint. 5 minutes have gone by.
Johnny Saint is such an interesting wrestler in that before I heard about World of Sport, I just assumed Johnny Saint was the best wrestler in this and that he would be my favorite. He's very good, but like extremely talented at what he does. But he's so over the top with the intricacy of his wacky reversals and like 5, 7, 8, 10 step ways of getting out of like a hammerlock that I can understand how for some people it grates on them. To me, he needs like the best Johnny Saint is when he's in there with someone really rugged and aggressive, again, like a Jim Breaks. Like that juxtaposition works really, really well.
Yeah, that is not the case here. This is just two guys doing the same style here. We did get a great sequence with lots of monkey flip roll throughs and a bunch of flips resulting in a standoff. And the crowd was super impressed with all these sequences.
Oh, yeah. And it is, again, for 1981, it is very impressive.
Very athletic for very that. Small guys doing athletic things.
And what you had mentioned earlier about the, like slow mat work and then all of a sudden like a really not only fast paced, but intricate high spot sequence, it definitely stands out. There are a few moments in this match and then even more so in the main event, I guess I'll say the final match we'll see across these two shows where it gets to be almost like modern Stardom, high-speed title match level of pinfall, reversal, constantly going on, which, again, for 1981, when you think about some of the things we've watched on this podcast from this era, it definitely stands out.
Yeah, for 1981, you get these sequences here in the first 10 minutes where it's incredibly smooth, pinning roll-up transitions, sunset flip transitions, really impressive when you, like you mentioned, you're looking at it through the eyes of 1981. 10 minutes gone. We're halfway through. Gray hits a drop kick. We get another sunset flip, this time called a double leg Nelson, which I've never heard a sunset flip called before.
Yeah, a double leg Nelson. Also, anytime there's like a schoolboy style roll up and it's a folding press. There's like 15 different variations of it, but Kent Wallen always calls it a folding press. We get one of those here at the end of the sequence, and for whatever reason, the ref decides not to count. It's very interesting in that, like, you have submissions, you have down counts, meaning like a 10 count for a knockout, and then you have pinfalls at play. But sometimes the referee, depending on which referee, it's just this decides not to call it, not to go down and make the count. Or sometimes we'll have, where it was the case in this match, the referee just does the count standing up like he would for a count out or for a knockdown down count. Like a guy will have a pin and he'll just be standing up and going 1, 2, 3. It's very weird. And also I would imagine if you were trying to, which they aren't really here, but if you're trying to time it for like a 2.9 count type of dramatic kick out, how do you even do that? It's just very odd.
When Gray tries to roll him up, Saint like rolls into a ball at one point, and that keeps his shoulders from being down on the mat. And we're told 5 minutes remaining. I personally have Saint ahead on points if it's going to go to the referee's decision with 5 minutes left.
I would agree. And going back to that ball, it's basically as though Saint put himself in a paradise lock,
Yes.
so Gray could not put a hold on him. It's basically like an armadillo tucked into its shell for safety out in the wild. This was very cool from Johnny Saint. Again, like I like what he does. It's just when you've got another guy in the ring who's doing similar stuff, it feels like it's a little too much.
Saint misses a crossbody. Gray tries a roll-up. It gets countered into more roll-ups into a rope break. Saint with a double leg, but Gray spins out and sends Saint over the top to the floor. He immediately darts back inside. More roll-up attempts. No one can get anywhere close to a pin. Saint hits a drop kick. Gray answers the count of 8, so they started doing the down count. Gray takes him down with a hammerlock. Saint he's nowhere close to being beaten at this point in this hammerlock.
No.
Another drop kick by Saint in the final minute. Both men collide. We get a double down. They both beat the 10 count by getting up at 9. Gray with a backslide attempt as it goes the distance. We go to the referee's decision for the winner, and he says Johnny Saint is the winner, and he is correct in his analysis. I agree with this.
He chooses Saint immediately. He did not have to consult his own scorecard. he knew where he was going with this. Both competitors hug and shake hands. This is apparently the end of In Arena, at least this particular show, because the crowd leaves immediately as this result is read. This was really good. 20 minutes that went by really quickly. Again, I prefer the clash in styles that we've seen with other Johnny Saint matches before, but still really good stuff. And it's cool to see Steve Gray because it's another one of those names that you like. I remember like reading about, but not actually seeing before. So that's always a fun thing.
We join a match in progress. This guy is working over a leg. It's Pete Lepac. And the people hate this man. He is hated. Alan Dennison is the other guy. He fights back after Lepac gets a public warning.
So Lepac is like, he's kind of got like unkempt, kind of long hair, got some facial hair going on. He's got blue short tights on. Think like Dory Funk Jr. Gear. He is wrestling Alan Dennison, who is bald and old and is a not fat man wearing an Andre the Giant style singlet, which always cracks me up. It makes me think of when Andre would team with Bobby Heenan and they would both wear the Andre style singlet. Dennison is one of those guys. We see him in really all across the world, whether it be in Japan, in the United States, even in Mexico. Wrestlers that are united by being old and very, very, very grunty. Dennison he trash talks and he grunts at everything he does.
This was a total pro wrestling match.
Yes.
Dennison grabbed him by the pecs and tossed him across the ring.
Yeah, this was like something you would see like on a modern indie show, this double pec grab. This was wacky, like American 70s style pro wrestling, but with rounds and a little bit of European moves here or there.
Yeah, Lepac gets another public warning for punching. Dennison hits a sunset flip for the pin in round 4, and we're tied 1 fall apiece at this point as we head to round 5.
A lot of these matches is pretty much the rest of the matches as these shows go on as we review here. They're joined in progress. Like we'll go to the studio and we'll have this again, like Wide World of Sports type presentation where there's
an anchor
at the desk. You see like the people in the newsroom typing away in the background. He gives us a quick update on the football match that I guess they've been dipping in and out of as well. And then he says, well, we're going to round 3 of Alan Dennison and Pete Lepac, and it's 1-0. And we join Kent Walton. So that's sort of the format here for all these matches.
Dennison into the buckle, no effect. Dennison sidesteps him and Lepac falls out to the floor. Dennison with a double chicken wing gets the submission in round 5.
Yeah, think the short-lived finisher of Ricky Steamboat in the
Yes.
Steamboat Flair feud, which basically, if you've never seen that or you don't remember that, it's the setup for Jade Cargill's Jaded or Ryusuke Taguchi's Dodan, where you've got him in, like you said, that double. It's basically like a tiger suplex starting point, and then you just elevate them, lift them up off the mat, and that is supposed to make them submit.
And now we go to the ring for a Big Daddy appearance. So,
oh boy, it is time for Big Daddy. He is big. He has kids dancing and clapping along to a song of some cultural significance that I am not familiar with. He has a blue singlet. He is an old man, a very rotund man, wearing an amazing gold jacket and gold top hat. He's in a completely different way, but it's one of those things where parachuting in, we talk about how sometimes there are guys who are top stars who you're like, oh my God, I see it. I understand. I don't need an explanation. This guy has it all. Of course he's the top star. And then there are guys like Big Daddy or guys like Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant.
Jimmy Valiant is one of these guys, yes.
Where you see them and you try to figure out, and then you just give up and you accept there's something about this man that connected with this culture in this period of time that cannot and will not resonate with me in this modern time, living in the place that I live, and you just accept it and go with it.
Time, place, this person, all the stars align, and yeah, you're right. It's a connection. This guy is wildly popular. People love Big Daddy. Now, I'm sure that there were people that hated Big Daddy, like people hated Hulk Hogan.
I hated Hulk Hogan as
Yeah.
a 5-year-old. That all
Exactly.
happens. Like, he is like Santa Claus. Like, that is how he is beloved here. It makes no sense parachuting in, but it is what it is. You cannot fight it. It is Big Daddy teaming with Bobby, either Bold or Bald Eagle, depending on who we're listening
Eagle.
to, because the ring announcer says Bald, and Kent Walton, it may just be his accent, says Bold.
Yes.
They're taking on.
Oh God.
Is it?
It is Wild Angus.
Wild Angus, who, if you live in the Chicago area, Wild Angus looks exactly like podcaster Greg Boysen. This was incredibly distracting for me personally. I also love how
I want to apologize then to poor Greg, because my notes say Wild Angus (parentheses) so gross.
This is not someone that needed to be in the gear they were in.
He's hideous.
Beard. He had long, greasy hair. There were big truck stop vibes from Wild Angus. And I also love how, like, on shows like this where the video and in this case audio quality isn't great, and the announcer has an accent that is somewhat foreign for me, living in Midwest America. My notes first say that Wild Angus's partner is Skull Kraut.
Close. It's Bull Pratt.
Later, I realized, no, it is Bull Pratt, who visually I would describe him as, like in the old, like the old N64 games, where like some guys you could make in the Create a Wrestler, and like they would look exactly like the guy that you were trying to create. And then there are other guys you would make, and you just kind of had to really use your imagination after you made them, because they didn't really look like it. Bull Pratt is a poor Create a Wrestler N64 version of what Kevin Steen looks like.
So Big Daddy backdrops Pratt over the top to the outside. Bald Eagle with some unique arm drags. And then,
I thought they were really cool. These like flying, like pendulum style arm drags where he like hooks like you would for an arm drag, like lets his legs go out from under him, and then basically like windmills around, like almost letting gravity take hold. It threw me off a little bit because the visual presentation, not this move, but what he looks like, looks exactly like Pero Aguayo.
Yes, that's a good comment.
Again, lo-fi, but he looks like Pero Aguayo in this videotape.
Wild Angus breaks up a pin attempt and gets a public warning. They get the heat on Bald Eagle. Big Daddy comes in illegally. He grabs the beard of Angus. The ref tries to force Daddy's arms down, but can't break the hold of the beard. He even tries jumping across Big Daddy's arms and bounces right off.
This gets a Big Daddy a public warning.
Yes.
Again, this is what you described earlier, how like it's sport until it's not.
Until it's not.
And it's also, and I'm not a fan of comedy in wrestling. There are very few times where I'm like, yeah, comedy, that made the match better. But it is funny how in modern times, as we record this in 2025, and people complain about wacky things on professional wrestling shows and how things aren't, you can't take stuff seriously because this happened on the show. This is 44 years ago. And we had wacky stuff happening while the rest of the time they're asking us to take this very, very seriously. We've not talked enough about Wild Angus's gear. We mentioned his look.
So
He's got
gross.
long, greasy, almost balding, but not quite skullet black hair.
Gross.
He's got a beard. Baby blue Andre the Giant style singlet. Apparently that was the style here in 1981 in the UK. No knee pads. My notes just say his look walked so John Tenta's look could run.
Angus keeps the heat on Bald Eagle. He's using the strap of his gear to choke behind the referee's back.
The strap of his leotard. I was very disappointed that he did not call it a monotard, as I've heard Kent Walton call it other times.
We get a double underhook suplex from Angus, and he gets the pin. The first fall goes to Angus and Pratt. Angus has Eagle over his shoulders, and he drops him across the top turnbuckle. Bald Eagle makes the hot tag to Big Daddy. And here comes Big Daddy. He runs wild. He hits a quick splash to even it at one fall apiece.
Big Daddy does not run wild. Everyone runs into him.
Yes.
And the crowd goes wild. Big Daddy's offense is roughly akin to a late stage Steven Seagal movie where he's in a room and everyone just runs at him and somehow falls down and there's bone breaking noises. That is basically what's happening here with Big Daddy. He, like my notes just say at the beginning of this match, there is no way that any top star in the history of professional wrestling in any territory, in any country, in any decade has had a worse look than Big Daddy does. It doesn't matter.
Nope.
Because he's so beloved. But my God, like there's no scenario where you would pick him out of a lineup and say top star.
Third and final session. Daddy whips Angus to the corner. He goes up and over to the floor. Pratt comes in illegally. Daddy goes for like a backdrop, but Daddy falls back during the backdrop and absolutely squashed the head of Bull Pratt in brutal fashion. He's down, cannot answer the 10 count, probably couldn't have answered a 30 count. No. Your winners, Big Daddy and Bobby Bald Eagle.
He knocked him out. He basically accidentally invented Hiroshi Tenzan's mountain bomb version of a backdrop where, like you said, you do a backdrop, but you hold on and just fall back and crush the man with all of your weight. This was terrifying.
All the weight was not spread across this body. No, it was just crushing this poor head.
My takeaway from this match, two things. Big Daddy really enjoyed being a professional wrestler. Professional wrestlers did not enjoy wrestling Big Daddy.
Our next match, Tiger Dalibah Singh versus Ray Steele. We join at the start of the third round.
No score.
Nothing happens. Steele catches him. He gets the pin with a backslide.
So we had a bunch of European uppercuts in this round. My notes just say Singh's European uppercuts are much better than Ray Steele. Ray Steele has like these really loose, wide, looping European uppercuts that do not look really difficult to deal with at all.
In round 4, we get Steele bleeding from the forehead after a headbutt. Steele almost gets a stretch muffler on at one point here in the fourth round.
Yeah, my notes say Steele invents the stretch muffler. Tiger Singh then has some. This is not Tiger Jeet Singh, by the way. Tiger Dalibhag Singh, who I thought, as this match went on, like Ray Steele just was like the epitome of just a guy.
Just a guy. Yep.
I want to see more of Tiger Dalibhag Singh. I liked what he did. I thought he had a cool way of moving. He looked confident. I would have loved to see more of him in there with some of the other guys that we consider as top world of sport wrestlers.
Round 5. Singh is in control, but Steele gets another backslide. This is how he won the first fall, but this time Singh kicks out. Steele goes for an arm drag that gets countered by Singh, falling down on top of Steele, and Singh gets the pin to even it up. We're tied going into the 6th and final round.
This was a hip toss that he followed through all the way down into like basically a slam and pin all in one motion. Very cool. I liked the we see in this match callbacks several times where guys win a fall and then the next fall they go for the move again and get a near fall but don't get the win. But yeah, I like this.
It's a stalemate. They bonk heads. Steele gets caught with a crossbody and slammed for a 2 count. Both men hit the moves that they won their first falls with, and then both men kick out of that. Singh gets caught with a knee lift as he comes out of the corner. Steele misses a knee drop. We get a short knee lift from Singh as the bell rings for the draw.
A 1-1 draw as the time expires at the end of the 6th round. This wasn't incredible by any means, but I really enjoyed this. Ray Steele against another just average guy would have bored me to tears, but I don't know. I feel like there's something there with Tiger Dalibhag Singh, and I'd be very interested to see more of him. I've never heard of him before.
Me either.
I did not look him up after this, so I have no idea about the rest of his career, but I am intrigued, which is a big part of what this podcast is all about.
Tally-Ho K versus Kid Chocolate. We are tied going into round 4. K's got the trunks and suspenders look.
He is short and jacked and sweaty. I don't want to cast any aspersions, but he has classic 80s steroids / other substances sweat going on here. This is early stages of what an Easy Money, I think, would fall into as far as gear is concerned. Kid Chocolate visually in terms of like the look, the short tights, the build, the no knee pads. It's almost a Norman Smiley type of look.
In round 5, K gets him in a torture rack, gets the submission victory. Our next match, Mighty Yankee versus Super Destroyer. Not that Super Destroyer. This is
thankfully
Pete Roberts.
We've had, if you only listen to the free feed and you miss like the 9 months between season 5 and season 6, what happened is that we became a masked superstar podcast. As you can see, one of the 4 Mount Rushmore names emblazoned on this shirt that I'm wearing. Masked Superstars tag team partner was the Super Destroyer, who was nowhere near as good as Masked Superstar. We've also kind of fallen in love on this podcast with Pete Roberts, who we've seen a few times on World of Sport. We've also seen him on All Japan teaming with Stan Hansen, of all people, as sort of the cowboy that would drop the fall, teaming with Stan Hansen. There's so much to say about this match. I mean, Mighty Yankee, who at one point we never hear his actual name except for at one point late in this match, Kent Walton just says Steve DeSalvo, Mighty Yankee. So I'm assuming that's the name of Mighty Yankee. There was like a tag team in the 50s and 60s called the Mighty Yankees. I could not find much about this guy. Visually, Mighty Yankee presents as it's like if you boiled these 2 men, their essence down, and made one person, It's the combination of Mark Cuban's face on Bill Kazmaier's body. It is bizarre. He has terrible gear. He's got like the really, really small, like collegiate style singlet.
Collegiate singlet. Yeah, that's exactly what
But then he's got this like big oversized singlet top on under it. It's very, very strange. Different colors, red and blue. He is extremely robotic. The way he moves around the ring reminds me of like a Max Muscle or a Brockus. You have Pete Roberts, who's just like your classic, like really good, well-trained professional wrestler. And then this guy.
So yeah, Mighty Yankees. He's got like a power lifter body, just really big arms, and in round 2, Roberts gets a fall quickly with a roll up out of nowhere, so he's up right away. In round 3, Yankee lifts him up in a Canadian backbreaker position, and Roberts escapes, picks a leg. Roberts is working on the knee of Yankee. Yankee gets Roberts to the corner, lays in some forearms, and gets a public warning.
So Yankee, to this point, and really up until the end of the match, he has one offensive move. He gets you in the corner, and he throws really bad clubbing forearms to the chest. That is all he can do. You think about some of these other big power guys who are like, you see him, if you just saw him in a magazine, like, oh my God, that dude has got to be so strong and violent. And then when you actually see them in a wrestling ring, they're the most tentative, unthreatening, non-violent professional wrestlers. Like nothing this guy did looked like he would hurt, but he's built like a tank with arms. It's such a weird juxtaposition.
So after getting a public warning for these forearms in the corner, Roberts does the exact same thing, no warning.
No.
And then Mighty Yankee gets a second public warning. I think it was for a shot after the bell. I wasn't quite sure. As we go to round 4, Roberts back to the leg he was working on. Yankee fights back with a bear hug and gets the submission. No, wait. Yankee is DQ'd. I don't know what happened.
So he gets a big suspended in the air bear hug, gets the submission. The bell rings. Then Yankee walks over Roberts, stepping on him. That is illegal. It is unsportsmanlike. So that is immediately, that's the third fall. They had split the first 2 falls. The third fall is this disqualification that I would imagine from the letter of the law, it's that the second round 4 ends with that submission. We are now in a rest period. You cannot attack your opponent during the rest period. Yankee does that. He gets DQ'd and Pete Roberts wins. This was certainly a unique finish.
And we go to our final match of the broadcast. Young David, or as he's also called, Boy Smith.
He is called in this. Well, so to backtrack, we had seen, I believe, the first World of Sport that we had watched on the bonus feed. One of the matches, young David, who at this point, or I should say at that point, was 15 years old. So I think it was like 78 or 79. Was extremely skinny. We did not know going in who this was. And then after the match, we realized that was a 15-year-old Davey Boy Smith.
The British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith.
The British Bulldog. Started in World of Sport at 15 years old, rail thin. Think like physique-wise, 10 years ago, Zack Sabre Jr., like mid-2010s Zack Sabre Jr. physique-wise. But we didn't realize it was Davey Boy Smith. Here, he has just turned 18, and they're trying to transition from calling him Young David. So they'll call him Young David, Boy Smith, and Dave Boy Smith. But like, it was always weird to me, like, why is he Davey Boy Smith? Why is he not just Davey Smith? Like, this was part of the transition of the name. He was still kind of a boy, so he was Davey Boy Smith. He is taking on Clive Myers, and this is one of those fascinating things where, in my mind's eye, like Clive Myers, I've seen this name for like 30 years, but I've never actually seen the guy wrestle. I thought Clive Myers was an old, grumpy, grunty, white man like Alan Dennison. Clive Myers is a really good shape, really athletic, martial arts based black man. This was just so confusing to me because I had an idea of what this man looked like in my mind since I first saw the name in a magazine in like, I don't know, the mid to late 80s. I was so confused.
Iron Fist Clive Myers.
Love that as a nickname. He's basically wearing Yoshi Kwan style gear.
We pick up the action in round 2. Double underhook suplex starts it. Fun grappling. Young David out of the corner goes up and over for a roll up and gets the pin. Dave Boy Smith wins the first, gets a pin in round 2.
It is so cool to see the evolution of him from, like we said, 15 years old, super rail thin, doing all the cool, what people associate with World of Sport type of counters. Then here, he's 18. He certainly is not 1992 Davey Boy Smith, but he's gained in height. He's put on mass. He's in good shape. He still is in that like really bad gear though, where it's like the baby blue tights and the tight white tank top style shirt, but you're starting to see more of what he would become.
Round 3, German suplex, but they end up in the ropes. All Clive Meyer here.
This German suplex by Davey, this is a Brock Lesnar or Shelton Benjamin level German suplex that he launches Clive Myers across the ring, over rotates to the point to where Myers kind of lands on his stomach and it doesn't really hit the way it otherwise would.
We see the speed of both men on a crisscross hip toss 2 count. They do a leg spread submission that looks like it hurts no one. And then,
it looks like it hurts no one. This is done for laughs. It's a weird match in that they're doing a lot of really, really cool sporting stuff, but a lot of what they're doing is being played for giggles. It's being played for laughs. The crowd is ready to chuckle at a lot of things. Maybe this is partially because like it's a friendly, like every time someone gets a pin on the other, they congratulate each other afterwards. Like it's clear these two guys get along in storyline.
Clive Myers puts on the Jim Breaks special briefly, which
yes,
we saw Jim Breaks do plenty of times over in the bonus feed. We get a tilt-a-whirl slam by Young David as the round ends. Round 4. Monkey flip, but Young David flips over, lands on his feet. Forward leapfrog, backward leapfrog, and Iron Fist rolls him up with just his legs and gets the pin.
This was a really cool finish. Like you said, leapfrogging over, then leapfrogging back over. And this is without hitting the ropes. This is all sort of from a standing start and then not running him into the ropes. But the end result is that sort of like Japanese rolling leg clutch hold. Very cool way for the Iron Fist to get the fall there as we go into round 5.
Slower pace for this round. Young David working a leg. They trade pin attempts by holding guys' arms on the mat. They each hit monkey flips on each other while keeping wrist control. That was pretty neat.
This was awesome. And the crazy thing about this is we talk about the parallels between Lucha and World of Sport. Here in 1981, this is like a 30 to 45 second sequence that 14 years later, Rey Mysterio Jr. and Psychosis would be doing, whether it be in Tijuana, in Tokyo, in Daytona Beach, Florida, in WCW. It was so crazy to see that from these two guys in 1981, and for one of them to be a young Davey Boy Smith.
A German suplex throw by David for a 2 count. Double underhook suplex by Iron Fist for a 2 count as the time expires in the round, and we go to the final round.
So weird. Like Clive hits an awesome double arm suplex, several near falls, and for some reason the crowd is laughing. I think the ref was working some sort of comedy spot with his count. We didn't get a real good ringside shot here, but this is just a weird vibe. I did not know what to do with all this laughter.
Round 6, they trade roll-ups, sunset flips, tons of pin attempts.
This is what I was talking about earlier, even more so than the match I referenced earlier on in the show, where this was like something straight out of a Starlight Kid Azumi high-speed title match. The amount of just sunset flips and counters and pinning attempts. Again, 1981. And Davey Boy Smith, we always think of in that tag team, Dynamite Kid as the high-speed guy and Davey as the power guy. Man, Davey had some mat wrestling chops.
And as an 18-year-old, keeping up with a veteran, and hats off to Iron Fist Clive Myers for bringing this kid along and pushing the pace with him and being able to go as fast as the kid could go.
Yeah, 100%. Clive Myers is another guy, even more than, or at least at the same level as Tiger Dalibah Singh. I want to see more of Clive Myers.
Me too.
Very impressed, very intrigued by this guy.
Yeah, I was impressed. Iron Fist leapfrogs the ref, tries another monkey flip, but David lands on his feet. David goes for a double underhook suplex. It's blocked by Myers. Myers backdrops his way out of it, lands on top of David as their arms are still locked. Similar to how Big Daddy squashed that guy earlier.
My notes just say, like, this is crazy. We've had two either legit knockouts or this was just a thing they did in these matches to kayfabe knockouts, but you could not have two more different wrestlers than Clive Myers, Iron Fist Clive Myers, and Big Daddy, and yet both of their matches ended the exact same way with falling backdrop knockouts.
Yeah, the ref goes to count, but he stops counting to check on David, and he is knocked out. And the referee just stops it, waves off. He doesn't even bother doing the 10 count. He's like, this dude is dead. He is out.
And I think this, you take your pick whether the previous thing with Big Daddy was legit. This looked like a legit knockout. There'd be no reason for this to be the finish of this match. Again, we mentioned this was a very friendly encounter, a sporting encounter. Clive Myers requests that this not be logged as a fall for him. He does not want to win the match this way. So it is ruled a no contest with each man at one fall.
And they will have a rematch to settle it the right way. So, yeah, really, they all agree to the no contest. Very sporting indeed as the show ends. World of Sport.
I'd like to see Clive Myers against Big Daddy and see who can hit this falling backdrop knockout on the other to win that tournament of that move, if you will.
Favorite thing on this show?
Oh, man. I mean, you never go wrong with seeing young Satoru Sayama.
Yes.
Sammy Lee. It was great to see the evolution of young Dave Boy Smith here. But for me, World of Sport, like anything else, I love when we see wrestlers we've never seen before or didn't know much about. I love seeing both Tiger Dalibah Singh and Clive Myers. They were really, really cool, really different. I hope we get more of them. We had texted before we recorded when I finally finished watching this earlier today. I really enjoy World of Sport. I really enjoyed the matches that the patrons selected for us on the bonus feed, the curated list that we got. My takeaway from this show more than anything, though, is that World of Sport is great in short doses. Watching 2 hours of it, particularly if you're taking notes while watching it, can be a bit of a chore. And I need a healthy dose of the top World of Sport stars. And I don't mean Big Daddy, like the best of the best in this style. I need a lot of if I'm going to be watching 2 hours, because there was some of that here, but there was some of it that just was just got to be a little too much for me, a little grating.
Would you consider that to be the worst thing on the show for you, or is there something specific that you want to call out?
Oh, man. I think, yeah, I mean, maybe if it's anything, it's just that I'm by far the worst wrestler on this show. But it was worth the curiosity of it because I've never seen him before, but I hope to never see him again. Mighty Yankee.
Horrible.
One of the worst professional wrestlers I've ever seen in 40 plus years of watching professional wrestling.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that he just went away and decided this was not the career for him. Good call.
It was not for him. And we've all had those things in our lives. We've all tried things. I tried to learn guitar. I worked really hard at it, but I didn't start till I was 20, and I just couldn't figure it out. And after a year, just said, ain't for me. And I think that's what Mighty Yankee found himself having to do.
Yeah, for me, the best thing for me, I loved getting to meet Iron Fist Clive Myers, a new guy I did not know I need to see more of. Worst thing on the show, I'll agree, is our buddy there.
Can you imagine Mighty Yankee, Big Daddy singles match? Can you imagine 6 rounds of Mighty Yankee and Big Daddy?
Oh my gosh.
If someone out there is listening and knows that existed and has that on tape, what an opportunity for you to become a patron, join the Intentionalizer tier, and force us to watch that.
Over at patreon.com/wrestling at random. That's where you can get all the bonus content. It's audio and video. If you prefer to consume your podcast via video, the bonus feed has both audio and video. And so does the free feed. That's right. So if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, search for Wrestling at Random Podcast over on YouTube. Even if you don't consume your podcast via video medium, please go there, give us a subscribe, a like. It helps us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. And you can see Adam's obvious shirt, which has a bunch of our Mount Rushmore on it.
It's a 1 of 1, but who knows? There's enough interest. Maybe, just maybe, this could find its way to a Patreon tier as well. You never know.
So make sure you support us there, and you can also interact with the show via all of the social media channels at Wrestle at Random. That's Blue Sky, Threads, X, Instagram,
Live Journal, Blurty, MySpace.
Come find us at Wrestle at Random. We love to hear about the shows you're watching, the episodes you're listening to. This is all evergreen content, so you're listening to it at your own pace. Let us know if you're diving in. You're like, hey, I just went back and listened to episode 57 in your World of Sport recap. It was awesome, and let us know. We want to hear about it.
There are people with a free feed as well. I know someone who recently, last 6 months or so, started listening to the show. They are knee deep in the later stages of season 2, and for them, it's as new as the episode that's coming out today. Because as you said, it's all evergreen content.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. All the links I described, all the ways to listen to the show, everything's available at the website, wrestlingatrandom.com. And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Randomizer. No thank you to Mighty Yankee. I almost just called him Daddy Yankee. I almost combined Big Daddy and Mighty Yankee, which, what would that look like considering the difference between those two physiques? I will have faith that the rest of the season we will not have any more Mighty Yankee matches. However, it's the Randomizer, so you never know.
You definitely never. Do not taunt the Randomizer. Don't even will that into existence.
Well, maybe the Randomizer won't do it, but I could see someone, maybe you can't find any more Mighty Yankee. I could see an Intentionalizer saying, you know what? Couldn't find 3 Mighty Yankee matches. Here's a curated list of the world's strongest man, Bill Kazmaier.
And with that, we're wrapping it up. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.